You're tiny. Yes, you are. And you smell good. Tiny and smell good. That's all I require of my plants. This little booger. I call him booger. I call everything booger. This little booger. It's the beginning of something that's going to be really great this year. All good things start with a beginning, and this one is the Mule Team tomato. Doesn't look like much, does it? No, it doesn't when it gets started. It actually is one of those tomato plants that starts out looking a little wimpy, and you wonder if it's going to make it, and then all of a sudden, poof, it gets really, really going. Now that is unlike, oh, by the way, welcome back to the Voodoo Garden. My name is Ray. I am the host of this growing green nonsense I lovingly call the Garden of Voo. And to stage right over here, the Praxis cherry tomato. That is a tomato plant that's unlike anything I've ever grown. That one starts out strong, grows strong, produces strong, ends strong, strong. Yeah, everything's wonderful about it. Not every tomato plant can be a Praxis cherry. This one here is a beefsteak tomato. This is called Mule Team tomato. Now a lot of you are going to be growing this year because I grew it last year, harvested seeds, showed you how it grew, how it produced, how it tasted. You had confidence in that you might want to grow that in your garden, so you purchased the seeds from Little Shop of Seeds. We're temporarily out, but this one, if I play my cards right, will produce more than enough tomatoes to satisfy my taste and also to satisfy the need for seed that you're going to have at the end of the season if you want to grow it in your garden next year. I have a little story about that, but I'll tell you in a little bit. I want to get to the fun stuff. Well, it's all fun. I want to get to the big stuff. I have to harvest today because actually I could just yammer and yammer. Instead, I will save your time and I will just show you why I have to harvest. Come on over here and have a seat. Something delicious waits on this plant. Yow! It sure doesn't look like much, does it? Looks like an old broken, beaten down pepper plant. And yet, if you consider how old it is and what it's doing, it's quite remarkable. This is not an old plant at all. No, this is only a few months old, but I've pruned it to keep it small, and I started it indoors from a seed. This is called Yellow Monster. And actually, no, it's not. Yeah, it is. Yeah, this, I have no idea what I'm talking about. This is called Yellow Monster pepper plant. And it is known for growing giant yellow peppers that are mild in flavor, great for grilling, not too awful thick in the walls like a bell pepper, and they're supposed to have more flavor. I grew this one year and I was impressed with it, but I didn't grow it again, and I don't know why. I think it's because I got distracted and started growing other things. I wanted to show you this because I start my plants indoors to give them a boost so that when I take them outside, I transplant them into the garden. That's what I'm going to do with this one. Transplant it into the garden in the spring. But I grow it in here for a few months in order to give it a good head start so that when I do take it out to the garden, it's ready to start producing almost immediately, and it doesn't spend a whole month growing up and getting ready to produce. That is 1 month outside that is wasted for me. And with a shorter growing season, I need to hedge my bets. Now what I planned on initially was to get this growing, prune it the right way so that it had good shape and size and everything. What happened is it started to flower. I thought, you know what? I have enough time. I'll go ahead and let it produce a couple fruits. And produce it did. Here we go. I have to get these off of here because I need this plant to stop focusing its energy on putting out fruits and now to start growing. Because when it puts out fruits, it drains the plant. It is a lot of energy to produce fruits. And for such a small plant, it's starting to get smaller leaves. The leaves are starting to crinkle. The plant is suffering a bit because it can't keep up with the large fruit it's producing because it's not a large plant yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here. I wanted to show you this. So I'm going to just snip it off. Oh, that's a relief for that poor plant. No, this is not how big they get. This is how big they get when it's a miniature plant indoors. It's supposed to get probably about maybe 2 to 3 times longer. It's going to be just as wide, and it's going to turn a yellowish color when it's ripe. It's a beauty. Now I'm going to sniff this. Oh, it smells good. Like I keep saying, I wish this had smell-o-vision. You would love this. Okay, there's another one. Isn't that a beauty? Yep. Now I have these all over the plant, and I'm going to just turn it and harvest as we go. This I wanted to show you because it's something that you can do indoors. You're not going to get the production that you would get outdoors. And yet, if you're homebound, if you can't get outside, if you're in an apartment in a big city, you don't have any space for a garden, don't despair. Now also, if you want to grow indoor veggies and get a good production, you're going to want a bigger pot. I only use, I think this is a 12 to 14 inch pot. The reason I use such a small pot in order to grow a plant is because it's not going to live here its entire life. If it was going to live here its entire life, it would go in the pot that's back there, a 16-inch pot. That way it would have a bigger root system. It would be able to support a bigger plant and way, way more harvest than this. As many peppers as one person could possibly eat. That's what you can get by growing indoors if you wanted to grow this indoors. But I do it in a smaller pot so that I can handle it and get it out of the pot into the garden. If it was in a 16-inch pot, I could never do that. I'd turn it over, it'd fall apart, snap the plant, too much soil falling off, way unwieldy. This is why I use a smaller pot. Now, we've got all the peppers off of here. Actually, we don't. There's always one special one that doesn't seem to know what to do, and that's this one right here. But what we do have is a good harvest. I'm going to set this one aside because we have something else. You know, there's always something more in the Voodoo Garden. I wouldn't shortchange you and just give you one little shot. No. This is Ray's garden. There's always going to be something good. This one here looks like a twin. This is not the same thing. This is called Ajvarski. This is a Serbian or Croatian pepper. Now this one grows peppers that look similar to this, only they're going to be red when they're fully ripe. By the way, neither one of these are hot, but they're known to have full flavor. I'm going to snip this off because it produced as well. This one's longer and tapered to begin with. Oh, and the smell. Yep, the smell. That is one of the rewards of growing peppers. The flowers smell wonderful. The peppers, of course, smell great. And of course, you can eat everything. I'm getting peppers off the plants. This is something else because I was only meaning to grow this to get it going for the spring, and I got a bonus. I got peppers off of this thing. So I got a little bit of food, and the spring gardening season hasn't even started yet. I'm going to move you back, and then I'm going to show you what came off of this plant. Not a bad little harvest for not wanting a harvest at all. These are going to go into a stir fry. Absolutely. Some of them, I think I'm going to save 2 of them for a salad, a really good chef salad. The rest of them, I think, are going to go into a stir fry. I think that's going to be enough right there. I love stir fries. They're healthy, they're light, they're easy to make. You can make them with just about anything you throw into a skillet. Now, that is just one harvest. There was another one here that I wanted to show you, and we're going to go through this together. It's right up there on the wall. Oh yeah, the Prax cherry. I got to show this again. Now, I may not be showing this much more because this was just to be grown indoors to see how I could grow a cherry tomato plant indoors. It wasn't destined to go outside. Otherwise, I would not have let it get this big. Because you can't imagine trying to move this thing outside and try to plant it outside. When you have a huge plant like this in a large pot, it's going to be almost impossible to get it outside and transplant it without it breaking. And also the large plant draws a lot of energy, so it may go through a little bit of shock. What I'm probably going to do with this is take a cutting, a sucker, root it in water, and then put it in a little pot. I'll probably do that in the next few weeks. And then that one is the one that's going to go out to the garden. But for right now, I'm growing the mother plant, and yes, you're seeing correctly, we have harvest. Yes, we do. All over the plant. The tomatoes that you saw last time are ripening up. Oh yeah, they're everywhere. Little clusters. It's like, where's Waldo? You look around, and they're in various stages of ripening. We have green, we have yellow, orange, red, large clusters, small clusters. Actually, we don't really have too awful many small clusters. Oh, that's not it. Look at this. I've been plucking these things off. This isn't the whole harvest. No. And there's the other half of the plant over here towards where the light, the bright light is, there's a couple big clusters over there. Now these I've been picking in the for the last couple weeks and snacking on them, so this is just what's left over. And once I pluck these all off, see, the plant has slowed down on its growing, almost stopped, because I pruned off the growing tips to keep it from growing too awful much. And that way it forces the energy into the fruit. Now, once I pluck off all this fruit, it's going to start growing again, because all the energy will be going right back into the stems, and then it'll start flowering. It's a never-ending process. That's the nice thing about growing tomatoes indoors. They don't know when it's spring, summer, fall. They'll grow continuously forever. And if a plant gets too big and too gangly, or starts playing out and looks a little bit, I don't know, ragged, you just take a cutting, root it, start all over again, and toss the mother plant, start all over again. Oh, I'm sure this plant is breathing a sigh of relief. Finally, you got the babies off of me. I can start growing again. Thank you, Ray. Yep. I am the one who makes the decisions on what happens to these plants, and I want to make sure that they're going to be as healthy as possible when they go out in the spring, because if you start out with a crappy plant, you're playing catch up. And with my method of growing them indoors, pruning them back, getting them solid, strong, and ready to go outside, it's like I'm preparing my kids to go out into the real world. Although my kids are going to be producing babies that I eat, so I think that's really a kind of a gross comparison. Yeah, let's just kind of forget Ray ever said that. Now, there are a few things that need to go. They need to go. You know what I've mentioned before. I grow things. They're fun. They're adventurous. They produce, and then eventually they have to go. I wanted to show you a couple of the not so stellar successes that I had. We'll call them, well, not really failures, but let's just call them it's time to go. Okay? Come on over here, and I'm going to show you a couple things that you may be growing. Learn a lesson from Ray in the Garden of Voodoo. Kind of scraggly looking. And yet, I think this is probably what they're supposed to look like if they're grown inside. This is the curly cress. I think the last time you saw this, it was just itty-bitty plants in a pot. Yet I pruned it back like I normally do, so it would get multiple plants. It grew all these leaves. I've been snacking on these. When I come in to water the plants every day, I go snip, and I nibble on its leaves. So I have been harvesting off of this, so it's really not a fair show to show this plant that is not looking so great. Most of it went into Ray's belly. And yet, it will flower. It is flowering. So cress will flower, and I don't know what the deal with the flowers are. Do you eat the flowers? Don't eat the flowers? I'm sure it's going to produce seeds, and so I've been like pollinating this thing to see if it's going to produce anything, and yet I decided I'm done growing this. I need the room. The real estate in the Voodoo Garden is very scarce, so I have to be very selective. I pick and choose, and now with the pepper plants that are going to start growing, and the tomato plant, this little thing right here will not be so little for very long, and a few other things that I'm going to get started indoors, I'm going to need the room up by the light. So I don't really need the cress anymore. The cress is going to go outside. I'll probably toss it to the birds and see if the chickens want to eat it. This one here, yep, collards. I believe this is collard greens. Let me look on the label. Is there a label? Oh yeah, Vates collards. Collard greens are nothing more than similar to cabbage leaves. The flavor is a little bit different, but almost the same. They don't form heads, not really tight heads, kind of loose heads. Beautiful leaves. I've been pulling these things off and nibbling on those too. I could have cooked them or steamed them, and yet I eat them raw. You know, sometimes people just like them raw, and I like the crunch. The issue I'm having with this is a fungal issue. See, this is a fungal issue right here. If you see your leaves starting to get this, you'll notice underneath they're going to look a little bit icky too. Purplish and blotchy. That is a fungus issue on the plants, and that just makes them look bad. It also has little bumps here, and that is edema from a watering issue. And that is also because it doesn't have a lot of pot. Yeah, this plant would normally have a very extensive root system outdoors. I don't have that here. For an indoor plant, I think it did really, really well. And you can see where I've been pulling off leaves and eating it. The inside looks good. I just don't need this indoors anymore. I just wanted to show you that you can grow collards indoors. And then the last one over here, I'll move over nice and smooth. Do you know what this is? Well, if you do, you're one step ahead of me because I forgot what this one was. I'm going to have to spin it around. Oh yeah, eggplant. Yep. Ray grows eggplants like nobody grows eggplants, although Ray doesn't much care for the flavor of eggplants. I just like growing them because they're beautiful. They are incredibly beautiful plants. This one here had a little bit of an issue, but the eggplant is a little bit different from the collards in the way that it doesn't care. It's starting to get the fungus on the bottom leaves. All I'm going to do is snip off these bottom leaves. This one here, and a third one that's way over on the other side. You can see that. The newer leaves don't seem to care. And what's nice about this is it's going to grow taller faster and get away from the soil where the humidity is. See? It's going to start forking out and putting out new growth all over the place. This is doing well. You can grow this indoors. Yes, you can. And you know what? You can even get fruit. I'll bet if I grew this indoors, I would get fruit from. You know what? I'm going to try it. I'm going to see what kind of eggplant fruit I can get off of an eggplant grown indoors. Do you know anybody else that has grown eggplant indoors? Anybody other than me? It's a fun thing. And if you haven't tried it, why not? For indoor gardeners, there are a few limits, but you know what? We could push the envelope and make sure that our limits are minimal so our successes are bigger. My morning tomato. Gotta love it. I go down into the basement when it's nice and cold outside, pick myself a morning tomato. You know, this almost smells like an orange. I don't know why. It smells like tomato leaves. And I don't even have to wash them off. That's the nice thing about here. No dust in the wind, no pesticide drift, herbicide, or nothing like that. Absolutely perfect. You gotta love indoor gardening, don't you? It's wonderful stuff. It's right there, right around you, all in control, no weird weather, anything like that. That's what I like about indoor gardening. You don't have to be at the mercy of Mother Nature as much. And you can get some really good stuff. As long as you make sure that you give the plants what they need, they will give you what you want. That's our first harvest. Yes, it is. I got to get these things out of the house, a couple of these, and feed them to the chickens. The other ones I'm going to trim up, get them back up by the lights, and get them really cooking for the spring. If you have any questions at all, oh, this is delicious. I'm going to eat another one. If you have any questions at all about indoor gardening, post it in the garden section below. I will be sure to answer your question as quickly as possible. Best of luck on your indoor garden, by the way, if you're growing inside. Spring's almost here, but then again, it's already here with the harvest that we have in the Voodoo Garden. Thanks, everybody. Until next time, this is Ray and his Little Plants. We're out of here. Dead fungus net. Bummer. Sucks to be you.